We all have that one eccentric relative, but behind the closed doors of seemingly ordinary families, there are sometimes secrets so deeply unsettling that they defy all logic. For my grandfather, my Dadaji, that eccentricity was an utterly bizarre routine. He would vanish from the house, completely unannounced, and stay gone for days at a time. When he finally returned, he brought something disturbing back with him. Severe, unexplainable bruises covered his hands and legs. If you asked him what happened, he would go completely silent. Then there was his room. It was a strict, forbidden zone at the end of the hall. He kept it heavily padlocked, barred everyone from entering, and insisted on cleaning it entirely by himself. These isolated, cryptic habits wrapped my grandfather in an aura of deep fear. He became a living ghost in his own home, isolating himself entirely from the rest of the family. As a child, rules are almost like invitations. One afternoon, while playing dangerously close to that forbidden room, my curiosity took over. I crept up to the locked door, dropped to the floor, and started peering through the narrow gap underneath. I could see a pair of motionless feet standing in the shadows. Suddenly, a thick, rapid stream of red liquid erupted from under the wood. Before I could pull away, it completely soaked my feet in warm blood. The sheer terror knocked me out cold. When I finally came to, my mother was standing over me, loudly blaming the intense summer heat for making me faint. She dismissed what I saw entirely. Dadaji was even sterner. He offered an absolute denial that there was any blood at all, and the very next day, a heavy permanent padlock appeared on his door. The incident was never spoken of again, but every time I walked past that new heavy padlock, I felt the weight of what I saw, tucked away behind a door that no one would ever explain. A decade passed. Dadaji died, and as a college student, I found myself back in that now abandoned old house. 10 years of suppressed curiosity finally overrode my fear. I grabbed a hammer, walked right up to that old padlock, and shattered it. Pushing the door open revealed a horrific reality. It was a dusty, occult containment zone. Heavy wooden shelves were lined with sealed clay urns, massive iron padlocks, and bizarre objects wrapped tightly in aged red cloth. Yet right in the center of the wall hung a singular anomaly. A pristine, incredibly beautiful painting of a peaceful riverside house. It looked too beautiful to be locked away in the dark. So I made the decision to remove the painting from the containment room and hang it in the open main hall of the house. I thought I was simply decorating the hall, but as the painting caught the light for the first time in decades, the atmosphere in the house shifted. It felt as if something that had been held back was finally allowed to breathe. That night, I fell asleep in the hall, only to wake up violently submerged in a deep, rushing river. I was thrashing in the dark, murky water, fighting desperately to reach the surface. Coughing up water, I dragged myself onto the riverbank. I looked up and saw the exact same house from the painting standing quietly on the shore. The architecture was unmistakable, the same sloping roof, the same porch swing, but everything was warped, covered in a thick layer of gray rot, as if the house itself had been dead for a century. Panic setting in, I made a frantic dash inside. The place was completely desolate, coated in thick cobwebs and decades of undisturbed dust. Then I looked at the main staircase. Bright, fresh red blood began to pool at the top, slowly flowing down the steps right toward my feet. The cold water on my skin and the grit of the riverbank were too vivid, too permanent. I wasn't just observing the painting anymore. I was standing inside the very landscape I had hung on my wall. Blind with panic, I scrambled up those bloody stairs. Like a magnet, I was drawn straight down the hall, directly back to Dadaji's forbidden room. The door was wide open. Inside, an old man sat perfectly still, his back completely turned to me. Without moving a single muscle, he spoke. "I told you not to come here." It was my dead grandfather's exact voice. In a sickening crack, the figure's head snapped 180 degrees backward over his spine. Staring at me was the deeply decayed, skeletal face of Dadaji. The sheer terror hit my nervous system like a physical blow. I collapsed into violent seizures, blacking out entirely from the system shock. The last thing I remember was the sound of my own voice failing me, my world narrowing down to that impossible twisted face before everything went black. I snapped violently back to reality, gasping for air in my actual bed. Down the hall, my family was sleeping peacefully. I tried to tell myself it was a nightmare, until I looked down. Covering both my legs were mysterious, fresh bruises, completely identical to the injuries Dadaji used to come home with. The moment the sun came up, I grabbed that painting from the hall, carried it back to the forbidden room, and sealed the door permanently. Surviving a genuine supernatural encounter leaves undeniable physical marks. It forces the victim to accept the impossible as reality. I cornered my parents that morning. I showed them the bruises and demanded the truth, forcing them to finally confess the ultimate family secret. Dadaji was never crazy. He was a powerful tantrik, a practitioner of ancient occult rituals who acted as an exorcist. He actively saw and battled evil entities to protect our bloodline. Those mysterious bruises were literal physical battle scars from the spiritual damage transferring directly to his flesh. That locked room was never a place of madness. It was a sacred containment zone where he trapped every single dark spirit he defeated. I looked at the locked door one last time. We spend our lives resenting the boundaries our elders set, never suspecting that the silence they keep is the only thing standing between us and the dark.